stumble and fall in the mountains.
Put a group of people together for as writing songs and discovering new musical trends and stuff like that. So that was the beginning of Earth, Wind and Fire.
My major influences came basically from the church and from the streets.
The tragic death of Maurice White leaves many people sad. Known for his powerful voice and the hits that got people dancing, White brought joy to so many fans. But did you know he struggled with health problems for years? At some point, he stopped performing. How did he live his last years and what legacy did he leave behind? Let's take a closer look at his life and tragic passing.
Well, there was a vision I had of planetarium, Egyptology, all these things that come together, and they grow with time.
Maurice White is known as the founder of the band Earth, Wind and Fire. But before he reached musical success, he went through a difficult experience in his early years. Born in Memphis, Tennessee in 1941, White grew up during a time when the city's music scene was alive with blues, jazz, and early rock and roll.
I was a jazz musician as a kid, and I learned to play the blues and jazz and gospel and that whole thing.
These were the sounds that inspired him, and he started his journey toward a music career there in Memphis in the late 1950s.
Some of my major influences was like people like Ray Charles, that's his whole group, the way he had put it together, and of course Miles Davis, John Coltrane, people like that.
However, life was not easy for Maurice White and other black people living in the South at that time. Racism and discrimination were strong, and Maurice faced this struggle firsthand. In his book, My Life with Earth, Wind and Fire, White describes one of the most painful moments of his early life. Back then, he had a job delivering newspapers. To get his work done, he had to travel through a white neighborhood, even though it wasn't safe for a young black person like him to be there, as the sun was setting. One evening, when Maurice was doing his job, two police officers suddenly pulled over and stopped him. Instead of helping or protecting him, these officers harassed him. They insulted him with racial slurs, which were terrible enough, but they didn't stop there. They actually assaulted him too, leaving him scared and humiliated. Maurice explained how this incident left him shaken. He recalled feeling helpless as the officers finally got back into their car and drove away, laughing as they left him standing there. He was shaking, cold and frightened. He had been so scared that he lost control and wet himself. That moment left a mark on him that stayed for months. In his book, he said he felt such deep fear that he vowed to always run if he was ever stopped by the police again. Maurice even planned to cut through someone's backyard if it would keep him safe. This traumatic event was something that haunted him, reminding him of how unfair life was for black people in that time and place. Despite this difficult experience, Maurice White didn't give up on his dreams. His love for music kept him going. He continued to work hard and focused on his passion. As a teenager, Maurice moved to Chicago, where he spent more time learning music.
Well, it all started back in Chicago. And during the time I lived in Chicago, I was involved with a number of different activities.
He joined the Chicago Conservatory of Music, where he studied to become a musician. He started playing drums in local nightclubs, sharpening his skills and gaining experience. Chicago offered him many music opportunities, and he found work playing drums with various groups. Maurice got a big break when he joined the Ramsey Lewis Trio, a popular jazz group.
Put a group of people together for as writing songs and discovering new musical trends and stuff like that. So that was the beginning of Earth, Wind and Fire.
Although he enjoyed it, Maurice wanted to create his own music and lead his own group. He left the Ramsey Lewis Trio and started a new band called the Salty Peppers. Maurice had big dreams, and soon he and his band moved to Los Angeles, hoping for more success in the music industry. But things were tough. Even with talent and hard work, the Salty Peppers struggled to attract a large fan base and make it big. Maurice knew that something had to change if they wanted to stand out. Maurice decided it was time to give the band a new name and a fresh start. He renamed the band Earth, Wind and Fire, a name inspired by his zodiac sign. Although the new name gave the band a stronger identity, Success didn't come overnight. They released their first album in 1970 and their second album, The Need of Love, also. However, neither album became very popular, and the band still struggled to find a major audience.
My major influences came basically from the church and from the streets.
Maurice was determined not to give up. He decided to make some bold changes. In a difficult decision, he replaced almost every member of the band, except for his brother, White, who played bass. Maurice wanted fresh talent and energy, so he invited new members, including singer Philip Bailey, who became an important part of the band. By 1974, the new lineup finally paid off, and the band had their first major hit, Open Our Eyes. This song helped them gain recognition and brought them closer to achieving their dreams.
Open our eyes, Lord, open our eyes.
During their early days in Los Angeles, the group had a partnership with a big music company, Warner Brothers Records. They had a friend named Perry Jones who worked closely with them and helped manage their relationship with the record company. Perry Jones was also a mentor to Philip Bailey, giving him advice and support as the band grew. Perry became close friends with Maurice, even living at his home for some time. But when the band left Warner Brothers to sign with Columbia Records in 1972, things changed. With the new record deal came new management, which meant Perry's role with the band was not as needed. This was a tough moment for everyone, and eventually Perry had to leave the band's team. According to Philip Bailey's memoir, Shining Star, this was a sad time for the band, as Perry had been a huge help and friend. Although it was difficult, they knew it was the right move for the band's future. Philip recalled feeling bad about losing Perry, but hoped they would meet again someday.
Basically, we're a jazz band, and we converted a jazz band into a pop band, so we covers all areas.
Then Maurice made a very bold decision. He fired every single band member, except his brother, bassist White. 7 people lost their spots in the band that day. Maurice felt the group needed a fresh start, so he brought in 9 new members.
We wanted to shoot after being universal. Being universal means appealing to everyone. So that's what that's all about.
One of the changes Maurice made to the band was adding a female singer, Jessica Cleaves. This increased the number of vocalists to 3. However, this decision came with a new set of challenges. Jessica Cleaves, though talented, had some issues that affected the group. Philip Bailey shared in his memoir, Shining Star, that Jessica started to skip shows and miss some important performances. But that wasn't her only struggle. She was also dealing with substance abuse, which affected her work and relationships in the band. Bailey remembered Jessica fondly, saying, "Everybody loved Jessica like a sister. She was the sweetest person with those beautiful eyes and her amazing voice. I was sad we couldn't make it work with her." Unfortunately, Jessica eventually decided to leave the band. After her departure, Maurice decided that the group would no longer have a female vocalist and would continue with just the male members. Maurice, however, seemed less emotional about Jessica's exit. In his own book, My Life with EWF, he explained that Jessica wanted to live with her new husband in Kansas. He added that her struggle with substances would have made it hard for her to stay in the band anyway. During this time, the group faced another tragedy. Charles Stepney, a talented arranger and producer, was working with the band on their album, Spirit. One day while they were recording, Stepney had a heart attack. He was taken to the hospital and survived the attack, which gave the band some hope. But sadly, it wasn't the end of the troubles. Not long after, they received terrible news. Stepney had passed away at his home in Chicago. Philip Bailey shared how deeply Stepney's passing affected the band. In Shining Star, he recalled, "After we finished some tracks in Hollywood, we got the phone call. Charles was found dead in his home. We were devastated. Stepney's death left a hole in the band, both personally and professionally, and it changed their direction in music." Maurice also expressed how sudden Stepney's death felt. He wrote, "No matter how it happens, death is always a shock. Stepney's death was so unexpected. Maurice and the band had to find a way to keep going, even though they had lost a key person who helped shape their music."
I know everybody's parts. So it caused me to listen very closely to what was going on musically. So it put me very close to the music and the interpretation of what everybody else was playing.
Just 2 years after losing his friend and bandmate Charles Stepney, White was hit with another heartbreak. His mother passed away. Despite these tragedies, the group finally found big success in the 70s. Fans loved their unique sound, and they were selling out concerts. However, as the band grew famous, problems started brewing behind the scenes, mostly due to White's strict leadership style.
So, I had an older brother, Maurice.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I said, he was a stickler for perfection.
Yeah.
Some band members felt he was being too controlling. This tension came to a head when guitarist Al McKay began to feel that the money wasn't being shared fairly. He thought that White was taking more than his share, leaving the other band members feeling cheated. Things got so heated between White and McKay that they would sometimes argue outside the studio, trying not to ruin the vibe of the recording sessions. During a tour in South America, McKay finally had enough. After a big argument, he told White he was leaving the band. He later changed his mind, but White wasn't convinced. When McKay refused to fly with the band to their next show in Mexico, White decided to fire him. Most of the other band members were upset by McKay's departure, but White didn't seem to mind. McKay's exit gave the other members the courage to speak up about their own frustrations. Many felt White was too controlling and didn't listen to their ideas. White, however, saw things differently. He felt that some of the members didn't fully understand his vision for the band, which caused misunderstandings. Despite trying to calm everyone down by meeting with each member individually, the issues continued. At the same time, White began to feel restless about the band's sound. He wanted to try something new but felt trapped creatively. Working on what would end up being their last album for a while, he realized he needed a break from Earth, Wind and Fire. In his memoir, White described feeling like a large dam was blocking his creativity. He started to imagine what it might be like to focus on solo projects and make a name for himself apart from the band. Then in 1983, the group released Electric Universe, an album that didn't do well. Sales were poor, and the band's concerts stopped selling out like before. The excitement that once filled their studio was gone, replaced by frustration and disappointment. Feeling worn out and unhappy with the band's direction, Maurice White made a bold decision to put the group on an indefinite break. Fans and industry insiders couldn't believe it. However, for White, it was necessary. He needed time to explore his own ideas and work on projects that felt fresh and exciting. White explained that it was time for everyone to do their own thing. He didn't want to make another album just because he had to or due to a contract. Someday they might make music together again, he said, but he wasn't sure when. Maybe in a year, maybe later. His decision seemed so casual, but to the other members, it felt like being left out in the middle of a storm. For many of them, the band was their whole life and their only source of income. Now, with the group on hold, some members had to find jobs outside the entertainment industry just to get by. White, too, had his struggles. His solo music wasn't as successful as he'd hoped. The New York Times even called his solo career a disappointment. His album had potential, with songs like Stand By Me and I Need You, but both tracks didn't take off as expected. Instead of winning fans, the songs faded out quickly. Meanwhile, White started working more as a music producer. He helped make music for other artists, including Neil Diamond. Many fans and critics were surprised to see an R&B artist like him working with Diamond, who was known for softer pop songs. White's age also became a hot topic at this time, which he didn't like. In an interview, he mentioned that he didn't mind being his age, but felt that it limited opportunities in the music world. While White faced challenges in his solo career, the rest of the band had an even tougher time. Some members lost their homes, while others had emotional breakdowns and even needed therapy. The pressure and the sudden loss of their career was overwhelming. White's brother Verdine, who was also part of the band, found it hard to cope, and their relationship suffered. For the first time, the two brothers barely spoke to each other. Ralph Johnson, the band's percussionist, shared how he felt lost. "This is all we knew," he said. "When someone takes that away, you have to figure out what to do next." But White's troubles didn't end there. He also clashed with popular artist Barbra Streisand. He helped produce 3 songs for her 1984 album, Emotion. His songs got the best reviews, but White later found out that Barbara had secretly changed parts of his work without telling him. In an interview, he said that he was upset to find out this way. He wanted her to at least let him know if she planned to make changes to his music. He even said he would only work with her again if he could produce the whole album on his terms.
He told me that he wanted to make me his woman, and I thought, my goodness, that's a whole lot coming from someone I don't even know.
Now let's change gears and delve into his personal life. Years before he created his legendary band, he fell into a deep, risky romance with a woman named Marilyn. Marilyn, a beautiful Hispanic cashier, crossed paths with Maurice in the store where she worked. The connection was instant and powerful, even though Marilyn was already married. Marilyn's marriage was not a happy one. Her husband, Salvador, was Elvis Presley's hairdresser and was 10 years older than her. Salvador was controlling and didn't treat her well, which left Marilyn feeling trapped and alone. She only took the job at the store to escape her home life for a few hours each day. Meeting Maurice was a bright spark in her otherwise dim world. The first time they saw each other, Maurice barely noticed Marilyn. He was busy with his music and focused on his bandmates. But when he finally looked her way, she felt a spark like nothing she had ever felt before. Marilyn later explained in an interview that Maurice's gaze made her feel alive. His eyes and smile seemed to light a fire within her, something she had never felt with her husband. Soon after, Maurice invited Marilyn to dinner. When she told him she was married, he calmly suggested she bring her husband along. But Marilyn wanted to get to know Maurice on her own, so she met him alone that evening. They bonded over their love for jazz music, and from that moment, they couldn't stay away from each other. Their love affair took off quickly, and they began meeting in secret, even taking trips together to different cities.
I said, oh yeah, of course I've heard of Ramses. Oh, so you're into jazz? I said, yeah, absolutely. He said, oh, an LA girl into jazz, that's rare. And I said, why is that so rare? I actually took offense.
Their romance was exciting, but it wasn't easy. He also had relationships with other women, which often caused tension between him and Marilyn. Marilyn admitted that he sometimes came home smelling like perfume from other women, which hurt her deeply. She loved Maurice, but his lifestyle wasn't easy to accept. Eventually, Maurice's first child, Hamia, was born, but rumors soon spread that Hamia's mother wasn't Marilyn. In his memoir, Maurice confirmed that another woman, Evelyn Carter, was Hamia's mother. Despite their rocky relationship, Marilyn had her own child with Maurice, a son named Sin. Many people think that White and Marilyn were married, but that's not true. Marilyn shared that she turned down White's only marriage proposal when she was pregnant. She felt scared because of what happened in her first marriage. White had 3 children from 3 different women, but never married any of them. This added to the drama around his love life. He also said that the mother of his youngest child, Eden, was his soulmate. This was surprising since she was a Caucasian woman. There were rumors about White dating several famous women, like Jennifer Holliday, Chaka Khan, Angie Stone, Denise Williams, and Wona Smith. Of all these women, his rumored relationship with Angie Stone seemed the most real.
Probably the worst time, it just came into my head right now when you said, was when he came home smelling like another woman. That was the worst. That wasn't cool.
They had great chemistry when they performed together, which made fans think they were more than friends. This rumor lasted throughout the 1990s, but neither of them ever said it was true. In his memoir, White admitted that his relationships with women were one of his biggest regrets. He wished he had settled down eventually. The thing he regretted the most was not being there for his children. Marilyn confirmed this, saying that she had to raise their son by herself. She remembered how nervous White was when their baby was born. He was so worried about hurting the baby that he didn't even want to touch him. The band surprised everyone when the old members decided to reunite. Fans were thrilled. It had been years since they'd played together, and now they not only reunited, but also recorded a new album. It felt like a dream come true for both the band and their fans. But just when they started to enjoy this happy time, a heartbreaking event shook them. Don Myrick, the band's former saxophonist, was tragically shot and killed by a Santa Monica police officer. The police mistook him for a drug dealer and entered his apartment using a strange key without his permission. They claimed they thought Myrick was armed, but all he had was a butane lighter. The shocking incident deeply affected Maurice White. the band's leader, who struggled with the tragic loss for months. Myrick's mother, Antoinette, took the city to court and, with the band's support, won a $400,000 settlement. Unfortunately, around this time, Maurice White's health also began to decline. White was eventually diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, a serious illness that affects the brain's ability to control movement. Parkinson's happens because certain nerve cells in the brain die off, making it hard for the brain to produce dopamine, a chemical that helps control movement. Over time, the illness makes everyday tasks harder and harder. For Maurice, this diagnosis was especially difficult. He was a health-conscious person, always trying to stay fit and eat well. Yet here he was, facing a disease that no amount of healthy habits could prevent. It was years before he felt ready to tell his band members about his condition. In an interview, Philip Bailey described how difficult it was for Maurice to share his diagnosis. Maurice held on to hope, wishing for a treatment that could help. But as time passed, it became clear that the disease was here to stay. Maurice made the hard decision to stop touring and performing with the band. For the first time, Earth, Wind and Fire performed without him. He continued to stay involved behind the scenes, guiding the band's music. Earth, Wind and Fire was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2000. Then, in 2012, Maurice faced a different type of struggle. Charles Stepney's children sued him, claiming Maurice owed their father unpaid royalties. Maurice firmly denied any such agreement and stood his ground, saying he didn't owe anything. That same year, false rumors spread online saying that Maurice had died. These rumors were so convincing that even Wikipedia listed December 21, 2012 as the date of his death. Fans were confused, and rapper Q-Tip posted a tribute to Maurice on Twitter, saying goodbye to his hero. The rumors were finally put to rest when Earth, Wind and Fire's official Facebook page confirmed that Maurice was alive and well. However, on February 4, 2016, the sad news everyone feared finally came. Maurice White passed away in his sleep at his Los Angeles home, peacefully ending his long battle with Parkinson's. He was 74. My brother, hero, and best friend Maurice White passed away peacefully last night in his sleep, Earth, Wind and Fire co-founder Verdine White said in a statement released to the press. While the world has lost another great musician and legend, our family asks that our privacy is respected as we start what will be a very difficult and life-changing transition in our lives. Thank you for your prayers and well wishes. Maurice White will always be remembered as the heart and soul of Earth, Wind and Fire.